The Roach Motel. The Roach Motel at the UAW is what these Alabama workers call. Now, tell me about this, because this comes at a time when people at Volkswagen, for example, have voted to unionize with the UAW here recently. We see this happening. What's the real story?
Yeah, well, the Roach Motel, the framing of that, it's easy to get in. It's really hard to get out. And that's one of the issues that are facing workers now at Volkswagen and then obviously at Mercedes-Benz. This week, there's a big vote at Mercedes-Benz plant in Alabama whether or not the UAW is going to represent workers there. This is their first try at this particular facility. But it calls into question kind of the power of the UAW when it comes to forcing workers into unions and how they do that. And we had this case in Alabama where we were helping UAW represented folks down there as it related to ball bearing plant that was had the union in place since 1976, and they tried to get out. They had to get 5 different votes to get out. They won the first 2. The union filed charges, and the NLRB overruled or ruled in favor of the union. They rerun the election. The third time they had the election, Steve, they had 148 votes when there were only 140 eligible workers. So the NLRB had to throw that one out. The union actually won that one, but the ballot boxes were actually stuffed. And then elections 4 and 5, the workers won again until the 5th election when finally the UAW stood down and the workers were able to get out of the union. It's really hard to do that. And we've got a dramatic increase in the number of decertification elections across the country. And it comes into play here because, you know, the union officials, particularly the UAWs out there pushing this, you know, these historic contracts they won with the so-called Big Three automakers last year and how that impacted workers. And the fact is there are more people kind of getting fired and getting laid off from their jobs now at Stellantis and Ford. Because of this contract, and you know, not many people are talking about that.
Yeah, that's an important fact you made there, Mark, that people don't realize, and it's exactly, by the way, what Donald Trump had said while visiting Michigan last fall in September, and then several times more recently. He said, "Look, you can get this great contract. That's all fine and well. What difference does it make if there's no job?" And he was spot on, wasn't he?
Yeah, indeed. In fact, the Department of Energy and the literally hundreds of millions of dollars in taxpayer money being used to support and subsidize the electric vehicle, you know, manufacturing and the battery manufacturing for electric vehicles. All of that comes conditionally with the idea that you got to have, you know, you kind of got to let the union into your workplace in order to get any of this federal money. So the government's got their thumb on the scale now, and they, you know, the EV being produced at Chattanooga is this ID4, that Volkswagen product that's full EV. Mercedes-Benz is building an EV plant down there, or a battery plant down there, and adding a production line for EVs. In order to get this money, you've got to agree to basically keeping your mouth shut about the impact of unionization on these workers. And I'm sure those workers in Michigan and the UAW members of the so-called Big Three, they were very sensitive to the EVs, and Trump was spot on about that. I mean, apparently the drive and the demand for EVs is diminishing, but yet the UAW keeps pushing, and the federal government keeps pushing our automotive manufacturing facilities into this electric vehicle mandate that I think is still in place, Steve. I don't know. I mean, we got to have, 70% EV vehicles manufactured here by 2032 or something like that.
But it's never going to work. I mean,